The JaegerLeCoultre Reverso. The JaegerLeCoultre Reverso is one of the most famous models in the watchmaking industry. Introduced more than 80 years ago, it is still totally faithful to its origins. Its name inspired by the Latinite turnaround, the Reverso was created in 1931 as a watch capable of surviving the hard knocks of a polo game. The case can be swiveled in its carrier to protect the watch glass. Considered a classic of Art Deco design, the Reverso is still manufactured today. The tag Heuer Carrera. The Heuer Carrera was first launched in 1963, though for decades it was believed to have not been unveiled until 1964. This was long before sport chronograph watches had any mainstream popularity in the United States, and Heuer was mainly known as a producer of stopwatches for race car drivers. The Carrera was originally intended as a tool watch mostly to be used by drivers and racing aficionados, but over the last 50 years it has become one of the most recognizable product lines in all of horology. When designing the Carrera, Jacques Heuer prioritized legibility and durability above all else. The Carrera was, from the very beginning, waterproof, shockproof, and anti-magnetic. As for legibility, the dial is clean and markers are well spaced to make reading the chronograph accurately at a glance easy on the eyes for drivers. The tachymeter scale wouldn't come until later, but the earliest models incorporated the 2nd and 1/5 second scale into the dial's flange. Inside these early Carreras was a Valjoux 72 movement, which is manually wound with 3 chronograph registers. The chronograph is operated with simple pump pushers and has a clean clicking feedback. Eventually, in the early 1970s, the Carrera would begin housing automatic movements and a thicker, more typically 70s style case came on the scene. Different dial configurations were produced over the years as well, including 1 register, 2 register, and date variations. This year the Carrera is celebrating its 50th anniversary, so we sat down with Jacques Heuer himself to discuss the birth of this icon. The Cartier Tank. The Cartier Tank is one of the most long-lasting models of the production. Introduced in 1917, it has been presented in various editions and shapes but remained a classic among the classics, a timeless watch that defines what elegance is. And furthermore, it is certainly the most emblematic edition of the famous French manufacturer. It was created by Louis Cartier in 1917, and inspired by the new Renault tanks which Cartier saw in use on the Western Front. The prototype watch was presented by Cartier to General John Pershing of the American Expeditionary Force. The tank was introduced in 1918, and entered full production in 1919, when a total of 6 pieces were built. Its lines and proportions are similar to those of tanks found on First World War battlefields. It is both a square and a rectangle, and its strap is seamlessly integrated into vertical sidebars called brompids. Since its inception, countless variations of the watch have been released by Cartier, including the Tank Louis in 1922, the Tank American in 1989, and the Tank Française in 1996. The defining features of a tank watch include its bold Roman numeral dial with a chemin de fer chapter ring, sword-shaped blued steel hands, and a sapphire Cabochon-surmounted crown. The Tank has become one of the most highly coveted and copied wristwatches of all time, and has graced the wrists of such style icons such as Jackie Kennedy, Princess Diana, and Yves Saint Laurent, amongst countless others. The Zenith El Primero watch. There is a bit of debate on who produced the first automatic chronograph movement, but let's just say that the El Primero was among the first to do so in 1969. The others were Seiko and the Chromatic Group, a joint effort by Breitling, Hamilton Buren, Heuer and Du Bois-Dupraz. In the end, the Zenith El Primero is still the only movement used by these 3 competing parties. With its high beat movement, 36,000 beats per hour instead of the more common 28,800 and 21,600 beats per hour movements. It enables the wearer to measure time to as accurate as 1/10 of a second. The El Primero movement has also been used in Tag Heuer, and even Rolex watches. Even the Daytona had an El Primero movement inside between 1988 and 2000. Although the El Primero collection consists of a lot of different models these days, the El Primero original 1969 is the one that comes close to the original. The Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. With its steel case, octagonal bezel, tapestry dial and integrated bracelet, the Royal Oak overturned the prevailing codes in 1972 and took its rightful place as a true modern icon. When Audemars Piguet unveiled the Royal Oak in 1972, luxury timepieces were usually small and made of gold, but the brand broke these rules, forever defying with conventions, with this first luxury sports timepiece honed from steel. Its powerful look ushered in a revolutionary avant-garde style, that has since become its trademark. Across its nigh on 50 years of its existence, this modern horological icon upholds the innovation and excellence embodied by Audemars Piguet. The Patek Philippe Calatrava. Created in 1932, it is the result of an avant-garde philosophy of aesthetics that showcases sleek lines and subtle elegance. The collection expresses artistic ingenuity at its very finest. The endearing quality of the design reflects the relentless pursuit of perfection that has always been at the core of Patek Philippe's mission. These inimitably elegant ladies' and men's watches are impervious to short-lived trends, recapturing the hearts of each new generation. Whether extra thin, with hobnail patterns or wide polished bezels, they are all unmistakable members of the Calatrava family, and even their changing faces cannot belie their origins. No other watch lends better expression to the true Patek Philippe style. The Breitling Navitimer. The Aviator Chronograph Navitimer, a further development of the chronomat, was brought onto the market by Breitling in 1952 and since then has become a well-known and popular watch classic. In comparison with the chronomat, it has an even more complex bezel with logarithmic, double-rotating slide rule scale, with which fuel consumption, rate of climbing or sinking and average speeds can be calculated quickly. At a time when electronics were not as heavily dominating as today, a model with such useful features was greatly appreciated, especially by airplane pilots. Therefore in 1952 the Navitimer was officially recommended as pilot's watch by the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, AOPA. From 1954 until the first half of the year 1955 the caliber value 72 was used for this watch. Later the caliber Venus 178 was installed. Since 2010 the newly developed manufacture caliber Breitling B01 is used. Accordingly, the model name was changed to Navitimer 01. Over the years there were produced numerous versions of the first Navitimer. So the external dimensions of the original Navitimer, originally 40 mm in diameter and about 15 mm height, were significantly reduced. This reduction was possible without changing the features or the quality of the watch. To achieve this, however, and to leave the date display at the position of the digit 3, the small dials for the stop function had to be shifted. Since 1969 the popular model was also offered with automatic winding, including the Breitling Caliber 13 and the Breitling 30. These later automatic models received a date display between the 4 and the 5. Today, there are variants of the Navitimer with even further complications such as perpetual calendar, rat trap anti or flyback. The Rolex Oyster Perpetual Submariner's robust and functional design swiftly became iconic. With their subtly redesigned Oyster case, distinctive dial with large luminescent hour markers, graduated rotatable Cerachrom bezel and solid link Oyster bracelet, the latest generation Submariner and Submariner date are firmly in line with the original model launched in 1953. The Omega Speedmaster Professional Moon Watch. For well over half a century, The Omega Speedmaster has witnessed events that have tested the limits of physical endurance and human courage, including the first manned lunar landing in July of 1969 and every one of NASA's piloted missions since March of 1965. The Omega Speedmaster Professional Chronograph has a unique place in the history of space exploration as the only piece of equipment used in all of NASA's piloted space missions from Gemini to the current International Space Station program. When Buzz Aldrin stepped on the lunar surface in 1969, he was wearing a Speedmaster Professional, the chronograph that has been known as the Moonwatch ever since. The Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, introduced in 1963, was designed to meet the demands of professional racing drivers. With its highly reliable chronograph and bezel with tachymetric scale, it allows drivers to perfectly measure average speeds up to 400 kilometers or miles per hour, as they choose. An icon eternally joined in name and function to the high-performance world of motorsport.